Mark's guests this week are aspiring supercar drivers Matthew McLean, with rival Broc Feeney, who is also joined by his father, 1985 Castol 6 Hour winner Paul Feeney.
Welcome to another show of Let's Talk Motorsport. I'm Mark Broc. Thanks for joining us again on another Wednesday night as we go back into the realms of motorsport. In recent weeks we've been concentrating on two wheels, but this week we're going to concentrate on four wheels with a couple of young up-and-comers in the, V8 supercars. They've been through the karts. We'll see what they've been up to and what they hope to do this year. Everybody hopes to do a bit this year by getting back on track as soon as possible. But first up, welcome Matt McLean, one of the young up-and-coming Victorians in the class. Welcome to Let's Talk Motorsport, Matt.
Thanks, Braxy. Thanks for having me on here. Pleasure to come in for a chat.
No, it's good to find out a bit more about what's been going on. Well, we'd like to see what's been going on. And before we get into Matt, also sitting in his lounge room, just fresh out of school, just went back to school recently, Broc Feeney, another young up-and-comer who's done pretty well in the e-racing of late as well. But first, before we get on him, we'll have a quick chat with Matt, see what he's all about. And like I said, it'd be good to see how good the year's been going, but nothing's been happening. So what have you been doing to keep yourself occupied?
Yeah, it's been a shame with the whole season essentially being put on hold due to this COVID-19 situation. But basically to fill the time, I guess really we've been preparing for the season ahead in terms of securing sponsorships, things like that. Because the biggest thing is, a lot of those partnerships that you may have signed prior to this whole thing happening for the whole year, some of them may have elapsed their period so far, or some of the requirements are not able to be met, so you're having to reschedule those things. But the biggest thing for a driver, I guess, is just keeping that seat time going. And it's hard not only physically but also mentally when motorsport is your passion and your career drive, and that gets put on hold. I guess the one thing for us that's really good is the fact that we have sim racing. There's a lot of sports out there that don't have the avenue like we do, so we're very fortunate in that respect. So
now, I suppose in a way, I know it's disappointing. Probably you get anxious at times and fed up because you can't get in a car or a go-kart or whatever to get that hand to eye that we know is so important. But I suppose everybody's in the same boat. It's not as if you're out of a ride because of such and such a team going broke. It's affected everybody, hasn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Everyone's in the same boat, which is, it's obviously a terrible thing, but it is a good thing that, that no one's at a disadvantage compared to anyone else. None of us are allowed on track until recently. Now some tracks have started to open back up, which is good. So hopefully we'll be getting out there and testing soon. But yeah, as you said, everyone's in the same boat. So. And
well, more so for you in a way, because you look like you're ready to springboard into 2020 after a pretty good last year. You've made from what I can gather, you've come onto the scene pretty quick from a good career in go-karts. So let's go back to the very beginning. How old were you when you started?
Yeah, so I was 7 years old when I started go-kart racing. I actually wanted to get onto two wheels before four, but Dad saw me on a push bike and told me that I'd kill myself if I was on two wheels on the motor. So he didn't let me didn't let me get a motorbike, unfortunately. But my next door neighbour, who moved in about the same time as I wanted a motorbike, got into go-karting. He ended up being quite a crucial part of my career, Phil Smith. He pushed my dad to get me a go-kart, and he actually surprised me one day. He brought home this old, it was like $500 go-kart, and I was stoked, went out for the first time and fell in love, really. And it was, a career drive since then. But, growing up, we, no better off than anyone else, never really had the money to do anything with motorsport. So we're just club racing for a lot of my karting career, pretty much from 7 up until, probably 2012. We started going to do some bigger race meetings, pretty much around the age that I could get out and get a job myself, so I could spend every cent that I earned on racing. So did that, and we managed to get some good results and picked up sponsorship along the way till we found ourselves at national racing competition in 2015, picking up a win and the first ever round we did, and the next year we won a national championship, which is great. So.
And on screen at the moment we can see, is this in France at Le Mans?
Yes, so from winning in 2016 the national championship, you get to go over and represent your country at the World Championship in France. So that was a fantastic opportunity to go do that. To wear your flag, it's with such pride is really good. So we qualified first, which is fantastic. But in the first race, we actually got taken out and we destroyed the car. We managed to repair it, but it was obviously never as quick again. So we still managed to race the heats. But once you have a DNF at the World Championship, because it's consecutive. To determine your positioning for the final, you're pretty much buggered. So, yeah. So from there, we had quite a few top 3 finishes, which is fantastic. But yeah, at the end of the day, once you don't finish the race at the World Championships, your weekend's done. So
when did you find out you had a bit of a talent for it? Because was there any motorsport in the family before you put your hand up to get a go-kart?
So because my dad's from New Zealand, he used to race stock cars over there before he came over here. So I guess you could say
love the stock car.
Yeah, they love the stock cars. So I guess you could say it's in the blood. But yeah, I went to the Formula One in 2002, and when I went there, I was just like, wow, I just want to be like these guys. And we went to the MotoGP as well at Phillip Island. I was like, just want to be like these guys.
Yeah.
Pretty much picked up the passion then, I guess, playing PlayStation, things like that. But yeah, I guess like. As a driver, as you progress and you learn the ropes, like everyone that prides themselves as a driver would believe they've got what it takes. But it was pretty much until the point where I could actually race some bigger events and get some good gear. It was pretty much until the point that I realised that I felt like I had something at least. So,
and when did you get the tip? How did you fall into getting into the 4-wheels or into the touring cars? Because there's a lot of kids out there racing go-karts and there's a lot with talent. So what made you stand out that you reckon others saw in you to give you a bit of a dip into the biggest school?
Yeah, so in 2012, our first proper year of doing open meeting competition, we raced a junior Top Guns event at Oakley. And there was a Formula V team called Junior Racing Development that used to come down and pick a driver to, that they believe should get a test in a race car. And we won that, which was fantastic. So back in 2012, I got to have a crack in a V, which is good, but it was only a few sessions sort of thing. But until then, I didn't really do anything. I got myself to a point in karting where, I was probably one of very few people that could say it was their, primary source of income, like as a wage. So I was at the point where,
wow, that's good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was at the point where I was kind of, I guess you could say, complacent or happy with that.
How old were you then?
First started getting a wage at 19 for racing karts. Anyways, it was pretty much, I guess the one thing I regret and the one piece of advice I'd give to any other karter is, don't listen to the people around you telling you you can't do it, because I got that in my head. I believe that it wouldn't be possible because I didn't have the money to go to progress the cars. And yeah, I believe them and just sort of got happy with the fact that I was getting a wage with karts. Like, how good's this? I'm earning great money doing my favourite thing. But it was until in 2018 we had an endurance race at Todd Road in Melbourne, and I raced that with Supercar driver at the time, James Golding, and we managed to win that race. And it was the next day after that event, I got a call from a friend of mine who was actually a customer, a driver training customer. And he said that a guy called Terry Wahoon wants to have a chat with you about running his supercar. So the next day after that, we went in for a meeting, and Terry said he was following my results and wants to get me in for a test for an evaluation, and went in for that evaluation. And yeah, after the first session, he said, well, let's go. So yeah, drew up a contract from there and pressed into it.
And he's a bit of a talent spotter too, hasn't he, Terry? He's been around for years. He was a driver himself back in the old days. He was sports sedans and all those things he used to get around in, so he knows what he's looking for.
Yeah, so Terry used to race the Australian NASCARs they ran, the Oscars or whatever they were called. Yeah, he was pretty much dominating that. And then from there he ended up running in the Kumo Supercar Championship, where I believe he got a fair few wins in that. But yeah, Terry is a talent spotter, I guess. He's one of the few in motorsport that isn't necessarily looking for the budget. That's more so looking for talent, like guys like Paul Morris, looking at guys like Broc Feeney, for example. Those guys that are actually looking for the talent rather than how much money you can bring to the table.
Well, for being a new talent, we'll bring him in on. It's a good segue with that, mentioning Broc. Broc Feeney up there on the Gold Coast. Thanks for joining us and welcome.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on.
Now, we're just talking about talent spotting. You've really set the world on fire recently too. You're 17, and you already had a good amount of success last year in your debut year on the tin tops after a pretty astronomical career in the go-karts as well. Talk us through that.
Yeah, no, it's been a great few years for myself. Moved out of go-karts basically at the end of 2017 and went into the Toyota 86 Championship. Got a few wins in that year and then moved to the Super 3s last year where I was able to race with Matt for most of the season and we came away with the win in the championship. And then to sign with Tickford Racing for 2020, it's been a bit of a dream for me so far. Obviously, things have been put on hold at the moment, but things have been going pretty well.
Well, you would have been able to catch up on a bit of schooling, wouldn't you?
Yeah, even that was put on hold. So I had a lot of time at home, sitting at home doing my schoolwork, but we're back at school now. So a bit of time to focus on that and catch up on all that before hopefully we get racing again nice and soon.
So when did you start racing the karts?
Started racing karts when I was about 9 years old. So followed my dad's footsteps, started racing motorbikes when I was 3, raced that up until I was 9, and we went on a holiday to Phuket in Thailand, and me and my brother went on the hire karts there and absolutely fell in love, so we thought we'd better come back and get a karts, and the passion for four wheels began then.
So was it a hard decision to make? Because you would have been pretty handy on a motorbike too, because your old man wasn't too shabby.
Yeah, no, he went good. So I sort of wanted to follow his footsteps, wanted to eventually make the progression up into road racing. So that was always ambition as a kid, my dream to become a MotoGP racer. And yeah, I won a few championships back when I was on these and moved my way up until I sort of reached the top of the junior levels. And that's where I found the passion for go-karting and sort of never looked back really. Once I jumped on four wheels, that was sort of it for me. Yeah.
Well, Broc, with what you've done in a short space of time, are you a bit surprised? Because you've eclipsed a lot of guys that are older than you and probably got more experience to end up where you are, well, where you want to be now in 2020 in this interrupted season.
Yeah, I've sort of always thought that I'd be able to do it. As a race car driver, if you don't think you can do it, you're probably not in the right sport. So from day dot, as soon as I moved into cars, I knew it was going to be a big challenge. And I went into that Toyota 86 championship with, there's 40 other guys that had been on the grid, for probably 3 years in that championship. And then they've been racing previously in many other races. So I went into that year, that was a big, learning myself. At the second round, I got 5th, which was great. And then at the third round, I won a race. So it was a bit of a big shock for me. I went into my first year of car racing and got a couple of wins against some, great people. So it's been a massive surprise for me. If you took me back to 2017 and said you'd be racing with Tickford Racing and won a V8 championship at the age of 16, I probably wouldn't think that'd be possible.
So, Matt, I'll bring you in then with this, with what Broc's done in a short space of time. To be doing that at 15, how does it sit with you guys sitting back and you're 23 now thinking, wow, where did he come from?
It's obviously a fantastic opportunity for Broc to be able to have a run like that. Like, obviously, it's something that, I suppose anyone in motorsport would dream of, which is good. Like, it's all about harbouring that talent as well. So it's good for someone like Broc, who's really got the skill, he's got the opportunity, he's able to capitalise on that. As a driver, of course, like I wish to have done the same thing, but, obviously circumstances don't permit, so.
Well, now you're in the same class together. Last year anyway, you're in the same class together doing the Super 3s. Well, did you have any close proximity conversations on track between the pair of you?
We had a pretty good battle at Winton. I think that was probably the only time that we had a battle, because my season got cut short. We had one of our supporters run into financial dramas after the second round, so that it essentially ended our year. We managed to get back out at the end of the year because we partnered with Iveco, which is fantastic. But yeah, I think Winton was a pretty good battle of ours with Broc. I'm not sure if there was anything else that we had.
What about you, Broc? You've got a right of reply on this one.
Winton was great. As soon as you said that, I went straight to Winton. No, that was a great round. Me and Matt were battling hard for that. That was the second round of the championship, I believe. So that was great. He was on fire that weekend. He was going really good. And, we had a bit of rubbing. I think that was the only panel I had a little bit of rubbing on for the whole year. So still got that little bit of memorabilia. But yeah, that was great fun.
Now, so the question to both of you is, how much has your learning curve gone steep from going from the go-karts to getting into the rough and tumble of what is the second, third tier of progression into the V8 supercars?
Well, I think Well, so for me, it was definitely a big jump because we went straight from the go-kart to the supercar, which obviously it sounds like a very big step, but to be honest, as big as what it sounds, I definitely would argue that it isn't. It's there's a lot of relatable things that you learn in go-karting in terms of car control and things like that you can relate directly to a supercar, and more so just hand-eye coordination, turning and when you're accelerating, braking, like a lot of these things are relatable. So I think if you can go real fast in a go-kart a lot, then you're going to be pretty good in a car. And Broc demonstrated that when he first hopped into the 86 series as well. And yeah, obviously he managed to win in his first year in that, and then won the Kumho Super 3 Championship. So yeah.
Broc, what about the difference in horsepower? Because I know it's a power to weight ratio has a lot to do with it as well. Pardon me, but you've got a lot more oomph under your backside in a V8 supercar, haven't you, Broc?
Yeah, 100%. There's obviously, talking 650 horsepower compared to about 30 horsepower in a go-kart. So there's definitely a big difference in that. Lucky enough, I was able to transition into the 86 series and then jump into the Super 3. So I had a year under my belt of experience in the 86s and racing in cars. So I had a little bit of experience, but, it's just completely different to driving. But as Matt said, I think the good people in go-karts always come into a cars and they shine. So if you can drive, you can drive.
You were just looking on screen there, a bit of action from you last year when you had a bit of a whoopsie on the front row of the grid. Talk us through that one. That looked like pretty a rip. Lucky you didn't have too many rear view mirrors to look at, I suppose, of the carnage that unfolded behind you.
Yeah, that certainly was probably one of my worst races or worst start of the whole year. That was the second race at Phillip Island. I was off pole and I cooked the clutch at the start of the race and got off to a very slow one, and there was little tap with me and it caused a bit of a pile up behind. So I was actually quite lucky to go through that race, come back from last up to seventh. And it's those races that you look back in a championship situation, and if I had to DNF that race, that would have been my championship done.
Yeah, well, it is. Luck plays a big part in it, or fortune. I don't like to say luck. It's just that sometimes you're in the wrong spot at the right time and vice versa, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Like relating to that accident at the start of that race there, that one of the cars that that ended up in that accident actually nearly clipped the back of me. The one that went up that we saw on screen, just clipped the back bumper.
So you got out of it pretty scot-free too.
I got through unscathed, so to say. But it could have been a real bad time for me as well.
What's the driving antics of some of these guys like? Because they're on the way up. They're out to make a name for themselves. Is there a bit to be desired at times about some of the things they get up to?
Everyone's pretty good. Like at the end of the day, like there's a lot on the line. Like when you think about the cost of motorsport, no one's out there to do ridiculous things. Of course, everyone's got their best interest at heart. And obviously your best interest is not having a crash. So at the end of the day, like everyone's going to try and race as safe as what they can. The thing about Super 3 last year is they also have what's called the Kumho Cup. So some older guys can have a run in some older cars. So that mixes it up a little bit and it adds a bit of depth in the field. So, extends the field size quite a bit. But those guys as well are typically quite experienced, have driven quite a lot of cars in their time. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think, everyone's going to be trying to race as clean as they can. So,
what's the difference between the top tier V8 supercars and what you guys are racing?
So last year in the Super 3 series, the cars are basically before what's now called the car of the future. So they're called Project Blueprint. So those cars were, a less engineered race car, essentially. They don't quite handle as good. And we also ran on the Kumho tyre. So basically, the difference between the Kumho tyre, which is a hard tyre, and what is a supercar soft tyre, the Dunlop Sports Max, that is about 3 seconds between those cars and us. So
when people see that on the screen, that there's a difference of the 2 or 3 seconds, like you said, it's not you and the driver's seat. It's basically you're hindered by the level of technology in the car that you're driving.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's obviously not going against any of the main game drivers. They're obviously fantastic. Like they put them in our cars, they'd be quicker. Obviously, with all that experience and skill, you don't get to the main game supercars without being a fantastic driver. So.
I think Broc might disagree with you on that after winning it last year, wouldn't you?
No, it was good. Exactly what Matt was saying. Our cars are probably about what they run about 10 years ago. So Technology's come a long way, and was fortunate enough to drive the Erebus and DJR car that they run last year. It was, a great experience to, jump in a car, what they run these days, and see that difference. And, the biggest thing is, as Matt said, they got those soft tyres. They got a lot more aerodynamics, and, the brake package and everything just feels a little bit better than what we were running last year.
Now, Brock, what do you put down your advancement to? I know you've got talent and everything, but is the mentorship that you've got and the people around you how big of an effort and contribution has that been to where you've got to?
Yeah, it's been massive for me. So as soon as we come out of karting, we've had a very close relationship with Paul Morris, who was great friends with Dad. So Dad called up Paul and said, hey, Brock wants to jump into cars. What do we do? And Paul came around the next week, picked me up to Norwell, and that's basically where all that started. The first day he taught me how to drive a manual, which was only 2 years ago now. So things are going crazy fast, but as you said, just being around people that have raced for so long. Dad's obviously been a massive mentor for me. He's been around the paddock for a long time, and he's mates with Mick Doohan and people like that. So you just get to learn from all those people. Paul's been, a massive help for me in this car process.
And so has he got long-term plans for you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the plan. I certainly don't want to be leaving him anytime soon. He's going to be a part of me for whatever step I take in my career. So, the last couple of years we've been very close with Paul, and I look forward to taking that into the future.
Now, I mentioned to Matt at the top of the show, the hardness, the difficulties of not racing. How have you coped with it all?
Yeah, it is a little bit difficult. I'm very fortunate enough, as Matt said, that we've got our simulators, which I've just got in my background behind me here. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to jump on that, and I was able to do a wild card in the Supercar series and come away with a win in that. So, it has been a bit boring sitting at home all the time, and, we're back at school now. So things are starting to get back to normal, but obviously once we go racing, that's what I like to call normal.
Well, that E-race was almost a mirror version of what you'd done on the track, being relegated back and coming through for the win.
Yeah, exactly. I went to join in the first race and my computer broke down, and it was reversed to the next race. I got to start. I got to battle with my Will Davidson, who was previously my teammate at Tickford Racing, and we were able to come away with a win, which on my debut in the E Series, which was awesome. I had so much fun, and just to race all those guys, you dream a young kid and coming up and racing the likes of those guys, and I got to do it, and I got to beat them. So that's definitely something that I can tick off.
Are they going to give you another wildcard entry?
I hope so. There's only 2 rounds left. So, that's the plan. I'm definitely onto them after that. Lando Norris was able to come back and do a few more. So I said, come on, surely I'll be able to come back and do a couple more. So we'll wait and see. There's a couple of rounds left. I'm on their case, so hopefully we'll be able to jump back in for another round.
Do you actually break into a sweat when you're doing it?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I got 3 fans on my simulator to cool me down. Your hands on the steering wheel, they sweat up heaps. So I've got a couple of fans just in front of me there to cool me down a little bit.
And what about the feedback you got by hitting the curbs and stuff? You get much of that? I've got one of my good mates has got he loves the Nürburgring, and he gets around there in a handy time. So you're getting, is it more accentuated with the setups you've got?
Yeah, definitely. There's obviously complete different levels of simulations that you can get. So mine isn't to the level of what some of the V8 drivers have got at the moment, but what I'm able to use is, it's a good tool for when I go to a new track. So that's what I mainly use my simulator for, is learning to advance when I get to the actual real racing. But, you get that great feel through the steering wheel and pedals, which is, that's your whole, what it's like in the real. It's great thing that you can actually use to improve you just, in your house.
So, Matt, how many hours have you been spending in the cockpit in the simulators, as you said, keeping the hand-to-eye coordination going and just giving yourself that try to give yourself that sensation of speed?
Yeah, I've been doing as much as I can. I actually have only probably been able to squeeze in a few hours a week, which is obviously I'd rather be doing 3 hours a day because I've still been quite busy throughout this period, just tending to things in preparation for the year. But in this time, I've actually designed my own pedal set to simulate what a supercar is like. So it's been good to be a part of that process in terms of designing, doing all the cab models, working everything out. So it's a full hydraulic pedal system. And I'm actually going to start selling them, so I'll be hitting the market in a few weeks, which is good.
So a bit of an engineer by trade, are you?
Well, back when when I first started work out of school, I worked for DPE Kart Technology, and I was a part of basically I was just started in kart assembly, and then after that, after a year or so, I moved up into sales and marketing, but at the same time was doing product development. So I was involved in an engineering front in terms of basically R&D, developing new products, and was a part of developing the new X5 kart, which has really taken the country by storm, which is good. So our prototype year for that, it wasn't even released yet. We managed to win a national championship in it, which is good. So I guess I wouldn't say I'm an engineer, but I definitely have an eye for it. I love it. So.
All right, we'll just take a quick break and we'll come back with more of Matt and Broc and a special guest coming up very soon as well. Make sure to visit letstalkmotorsport.com.au where you can upload your race bike or car or kart and show us what you've got. It's easy and we want to share your passion with others right here on the show. While you're there, you can visit our YouTube channel with loads of videos to catch up on and follow us on Facebook. letstalkmotorsport.com.au, one destination with the lot. Well, welcome back. Just a quick plug for ourselves because we haven't got many other things to plug, hint, hint, anyway. But welcome back to Let's Talk Motorsport with our special guests, Matt McLean and Broc Feeney up there on the Gold Coast. Now, this year and beyond, what's your short-term goals? I know everybody wants to turn into a supercar champion or a Formula One or whatever. What's the next stepping stone for you, Matt?
Yeah, so for me, the goal is to have a foundation career in supercars in Australia, but also to have my skills set abroad so I can race globally. So the plan is obviously to have my career as a racing driver, no matter what category that would be in. So this year we're going to have a program that we haven't been able to announce yet, but is a bit of an intensive program across a few different categories, which will see us, broaden our skill set and put a footprint between a lot of the top categories and more so popular categories around the world.
So is it becoming more now with, I suppose, the first question I should ask is, and Broc, you can come into this if you want to too, with what's happened with this virus and crisis and pandemic around the world, how much do you think that's going to affect motorsport in Australia, particularly at this lower level? Because a lot of the sponsors you get, and Broc, you'd probably agree with this, is they're family, friends, or they're people there's not a lot of, particularly in bikes, I suppose it's more pronounced in motorcycle racing and car racing, that they've got an interest, but a lot of these companies, especially when you're looking back through the field, who's taking out the advertising positions on the cars, there's a lot of small companies involved that go into making these car teams up and financing it all. So in the next maybe 12, 18 months, 2 years, maybe 3 years, do you think it's going to have much of a detrimental effect of people like you were saying, some of your sponsors this year have had to renegotiate or pull out or whatever, the long-term effect for you?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to have an impact on motorsport, as it will in a lot of industries, especially like sport in general. It's predominantly dependent on sponsorship or partnerships, things like that. For us, for myself and for Broc, at our level, we're kind of we've got a foot in sort of both pools here. So it's like you have a lot of smaller businesses that are helping contribute to get you to that budget, but you're also tapping into that high-end corporate sponsor as well. So the thing about that is, I think it's sort of 50-50. There's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to struggle, and we've seen that with Tickford Racing and 23 Milwaukee Racing having to pull out because Milwaukee had to restructure where their finances were going just due to this whole situation. So if you see a top team like that pull out, you can imagine how it's going to affect adversely throughout any other categories throughout motorsport.
And Broc, how are you finding up there? Has there been any impact on your team at the moment, or any other teams that you know of that are going to be affected by this in the near and distant future?
Yeah, obviously the biggest thing was, as Matt mentioned, that 20 Red pulled out. Will was a part of, they were part of the Tickford team. So it's a big shame, they've unfortunately had to leave as a team. And in that situation, Boost Mobile have come in with James Courtney. So it is good to see that someone is able to fill that spot. And, it's going to be a tough time for sure. There's a lot of businesses that are obviously very much struggling through this situation at the moment. It's going to be a tough period for us. And when you're trying to rely on sponsorship money to push your career forward, it's definitely going to be tough. So it's sort of going to be a wait and see situation, but yeah, it's, as I said, it's just going to be wait and see what happens in the future.
Is it going to get back to a stage I thought we were getting away with talent was signing the cheques instead of somebody with a big bank account coming in behind you and saying, here's a 300,000, 400,000 for this kid to drive? Is that going to become more of an issue?
It could be, it's something that you just got to sort of wait and see what happens. As we talk about, with Dad, how back in the day, you'd sort of get picked up on your talent. Things have changed massively over the years, and a lot of it does come down to money, unfortunately, these days. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm hoping that this global pandemic will actually bring the cost down in supercars and motorsport. You can see Formula One's now put a budget cap on for all their teams. So I'm hoping they'll be able to enforce into the supercars in Australia and actually make it possible for, younger kids coming up and, people with talent that they can actually get an opportunity to race in supercars.
Yeah, you feel the same too, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Like as Brock said, with all these big motorsport categories now, restructuring and trying to cut costs, it's actually good. Like obviously a lot of things that have gone on with this pandemic have been absolutely terrible, but there are going to be some good things that come of it. Like, as Brock said, F1 restructuring, putting a budget cap, supercars in their Gen 3 developments for the next supercar that'll be coming out is like less than half the cost to build a car. So it's going to be around $300,000 to build a supercar rather than being, $650 sort of area. So it's going to be good. At least it's going to cut. It's more of a call to action. Something like this happens, and it's a call to action on how expensive things really are, and now no one can afford to do it. So
well, it makes you wonder why the decision wasn't made before, because even before this pandemic struck, we were talking about the cost of racing and it was going up and everything. And it's a pity that it's taken something like this gun to the head sort of thing for everybody to go, hang on, we can't keep going the way we've been going.
Yeah, it is a pity to think about all the dollars that have been wasted on unnecessary engineering that have gone through. But at the end of the day, like at least all the teams at that current time were in the same boat. But yeah, it is a shame that for all those years, so many teams have not been able to capitalise on being able to race. So hopefully with these changes, we'll be able to see a lot more teams, a lot more drivers, some younger people up and coming, some, smaller businesses able to get some bigger signage on race cars, things like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that aspect at least.
Well, talking of sponsors, we'll go to one that had a little bit of a bearing on Broc Feeney, who we're talking to about. His old man, Paul. I think he's up there somewhere, hiding in the shadows. Are you there, Paul? Without you, Brock probably wouldn't be halfway along where he is now with all your help you've done over the years, being a father and son outfit.
Yeah, no, it's certainly affected my retirement plan, Braxy, but in saying that, it's been worth every cent. I've thoroughly enjoyed the trip, and to be honest, back when we were racing, I always wondered what I'd do for kicks and that once I retired. But I think I've enjoyed this part of my life more than I actually enjoyed my racing. And to be honest, I absolutely love my racing. So this has been a wonderful trip for me. Yeah,
it certainly has, mate. Must be a pretty proud dad as well to see what he's done. And I don't mean to be saying that just because you're sitting beside him, but it's a meteoric rise that he's had in the sport, and you must be pinching yourself at how fast it's happened.
Oh, exactly, Braxy. It's been good. You can sort of pick, I've been involved in the sport a long time, involved with Casey and Mick, all the boys that have come out of Australia, and Brock's sort of growing up in that environment. So he's been fortunate in one way. He knows what it takes to be at the top. He knows you can't be mediocre. You've got to put 100% in. And that's one thing that he has learned right from the outset, even when he was very young, about his fitness, his mindset and his ability. And he's been able to keep that together all the way through. And as you said, I'm a very proud dad, but he makes it happen. He's the one who does the work. He does the job, and he is where he is because of the effort he puts in.
Well, just going back, he had a little bit of a different intro into racing than what you had an intro into racing, if my memory serves me correctly, being one of the bad boys of Goulburn charging around the streets. And I think it's one of the classic stories of you're too fast for the road, mate, you better go road racing. And that was from a bit of advice from a certain policeman in Goulburn.
That's correct. Ray Smith, he ended up being a good mate of mine. He was in patrol in Goulburn, and he was fortunately for me, he was a motorbike nut. He just lived for his motorbikes. He didn't even have a car. He had his bikes through himself, and he had the police bikes. And he used to chase me around town quite a bit, and I got to know him quite well all through the wrong way, of course. But he was fantastic. And then we started going on road rides together, and he said, like, you really need to start road racing. He said, one, you're going to kill yourself if you keep doing what you're doing on the road, and two, I think you're very talented. And prior to that, we had no money at home. I jumped on as a passenger as a sidecar, did Bathurst and a few other odds and ends. So I did know the track, and we had a pretty bad crash at Sandown, and I realised at that point that I actually wanted to be not just a passenger. So that was very early in the piece when I was about 16, 17. So Ray got me out of that, he bought me my first race bike actually, which was an RD2 progressive. So so I'm glad Broc hasn't got to go down that road with the police chasing you around the streets to get a drive.
Well, I'm glad he did put you on the straight and narrow in that regard, because you did turn into one of the best production races we've seen in Australia in the 70s and 80s. And I'll never forget that, very dramatic Castol 6 Hour in 85 in that atrocious conditions. I was a budding photographer back then, in those days, and I think you might have been one of the few people that actually crashed a bike and then managed to get and win the race by what was about 10 or 15 seconds over Lenny Willing after a race-long duel with the likes of you. There was Dowson, there was McGee in it, there was Gardner retired because he crashed too much. I think that might have even been the actual photo we just put up of two bikes lying stranded on the side of the track.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing race. Like, I teamed up with Rick Scott, who was one of 8 riders at the time as well. So we had a strong team. We were both good in the wet and pretty quick in the dry as well. So we had a good combination in that race. Like, Scott crashed in the session. It was only a bit of a slide off. It was nothing major, but he actually went down the road. There was no marks on the bike. We got going, he handed over, and we're in about 6th or 7th. Then it started raining. I was starting to make my way through a bit. Then it literally started pouring, and just before I was about to stop, Wayne Gardner and myself come together. I went down the road and pulled into the pit stop, and they said, "How is it?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'll keep going because I move now." I managed to get the bike back into the lead, even after the accident. And Scotty did a great job, and Lenny was on fire that day and actually got into the lead, and him and Scotty were singing it out, and Lenny, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, crashed with about 3 laps to go, handing the lead to Scotty. And it would have been touch and go anyway. I think Scotty did have him, but it come down to the wire. Very eventful race, one I'll never forget.
I bet it was, because I can't forget, and I was on the sidelines. And Broc, does he go back and live old past days in front of you back in my day?
Yeah, he does it. He's still great mates with Mick and all those sort of guys from the racing. So especially when we go over to their house, him and Mick always trying to tell me old stories from when they were racing back in the day, and how both of them come up based on where they are today. So I love hearing those stories, and the people that he's raced over the years, and where he's in the world as well. It's been quite incredible, and something that I want to become a professional racer, and that's what my dad did for a living.
Paul, were you surprised that he, after starting off on 2 wheels, jumped to the 4 wheels?
No, I was a bit shocked at the start with Branksy, because, as you know, my involvement was always 2 wheels, even business-wise. After I went on to have the retail shops and then the distribution with the bikes. So, motorcycles have been very good to me throughout my life, to say the least. And Broc was very talented on a motorbike at a young age. So, of course, when he said, "I want to go-kart racing," I thought, what's he thinking? But in reality, as you know, the dangers of the sport. It's a lot safer now than it was in our day, but you're still going to get busted up. And he's found something that he loves, and to be honest, I love it as well. And I'm glad that he's gone down the road he has gone, because he's excelling at it, and he's loving his life. As I said, so am I. So initially, I was a little upset, but now more than proud of what he's done and about to come.
So, Brock, did you and Jack Doohan spend a lot of time on go-kart tracks together?
Yeah, we basically spent our whole karting career together, and we still probably do a fair bit as well, actually. We were obviously great mates as we were growing up before we both got into go-karting, and Jack started a year before me, and I actually remember going to watch him at Lismore, and this was when I was just starting to get into the go-karting a little bit, and thought, how cool is that, when we started to actually getting into it a bit seriously. And, we never probably went to a race without each other racing each other. So, it was a great 6-7 years where everything against each other, and most of the time we're right next to each other on the grid, and the battles will certainly be something we talk about for a lot of years to come.
So, are you thinking of heading over in the near future and trying to join him on an open wheeler grid?
Absolutely. As everyone sort of knows, motorsport's not the easiest to sort of go and do those opportunities. So it was something that I wanted to do as I was a little bit younger in karting, and I always sort of dreamed of making it to Formula One. Sort of realised that's probably not achievable for myself, and I want to focus on making it in Australia at the moment, and I want to make it to the V8 Supercars and try and win as many championships as I can. And if something happens after that, well, we'll wait and see what happens.
Now, Paul, before we let you go, Paul, what are you up to now? Because you got out of the retail side of things. You're into the go-kart, the AKA for a while. I believe you're out of that now. Are you just comfortably retired and enjoying life on the Gold Coast with a fishing rod in your hand? I can't believe you could do that, but anyway.
Yeah, uncomfortably retired because of the racing. But no, I've still got some interest. I kept myself busy. I'm currently doing up a factory down at Burleigh to lease out, and I'm certainly not sitting around. I'm still up every morning at 6:30 and head off to do something. I don't think I'll ever be able to just sit still and go out the back and go fishing or whatever. I'll be doing something, and fortunate stage, Brock's keeping me very busy. So I'm enjoying life, Brax. I really am. It's good. I'm busy during the week, and then when we go racing, it doesn't get any better than that. So yeah.
Well, it hasn't come easy for you, Feen, because you probably got into the industry that's probably the hardest to make a buck out of, is in the motorcycle industry. But you did well with that, with Husky, with MV, and everything else you touched yourself foot with. So enjoy it, and watch what your young bloke can do, because I'm sure at least you got the time now to travel around the tracks of Australia and hopefully the world and follow his career.
Certainly hope so. Yeah, definitely got the time. So. We're looking forward to that, Braxton. As I said, I think the best is yet to come, and we've got some enjoyable years ahead of us, I hope. We certainly haven't got a crystal ball, but with Paul, and he's been a great asset, and with the effort that Brock puts in, I think there is a bright future there, and we'll just have to wait and see how it pans out. I'm sure it's going to.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll talk to you more in a couple of times a year or something, Brock, and see how the progress is going. Well, let's get back on a racetrack first before we think about getting too far ahead of ourselves. But thanks for joining us up there on the Gold Coast. Thanks, Fiends, for dropping in, having a quick chat. We'll have to get you back for a bit more of a detailed chat about your racing career, because there's probably more interest in the stories what you got to off a track than what there was on a track.
Believe it.
No,
all right, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll let you go, but we'll go back to Matt to finish the show off as well. But thanks again, and all the best for the seasons that come up there on the Gold Coast.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Good to talk to you, Brax. He's really good. Always is.
No worries. You too, guys. Have fun, and see you soon at a racetrack, very, very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, should be good. See you then.
And Matt, the bit of entertaining getting those two together. And I saw you nodding your head there a couple of times when you're talking about how he's progressed very quickly in the talent that he's got. And, you know, I suppose the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree with his father, 5 times champion, as we all know. And now that Jack's starting a bit of making a name for himself, you were sitting there going, yep, you can see where all this is unfolding, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see. Like, you know, when I was racing karts and Broc was at the same time, he was in that junior category and I just stepped into the seniors and, you know, both sort of winning quite frequently in our respective categories. So it's good to step up and, you know, see someone who was at the same time going so well actually progress through cars. It's just, you know, a shame to see in karts a lot. You see a lot of people that have a lot of talent and, you know, don't, you know, particularly have the opportunity to capitalise on it. So it's just fantastic to see someone with the skill like that does have, you know, the opportunity to harbour that talent and progress through motorsport.
So what's the go-kart parents like in go-kart racing?
It's very competitive in karts, that's for sure, and definitely the parents did get in amongst each other. It's quite a bit of headbutting that goes on, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of dollars on the line. Everyone's spending every cent that they've got, and it's the passion behind it as well. So you can understand why everyone's mates at the end of the day. Maybe just not at the middle of the day, but you know, everyone will have a beer with each other at the end of the day, or you know, at least catch up, you know, between events and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, it's just it's sort of kids pushing their own talent and their drive and their dreams, and it's also sometimes the parents living through their kids that may not have had the opportunity to capitalise on that like their children.
Is that hard to set up a mateship? Because obviously you're not mates on the track, as you said, but you do become friends, personalities attract each other. Does that sort of hinder you if you get on well with a mate? The parent mightn't like you, or you might have done something to little Johnny and that has a bearing on you trying to get on with other people in the paddock?
Yeah, it definitely does play a role for sure. It's always seems as though in younger ranks of karting that the drivers amongst each other will get over issues on the track, and then sometimes the parents will, you know, maybe have an issue. Like I can count various times where my dad has just written off people that he doesn't like because they've hit me on track, sort of thing. And you know, after a couple of hours, I've been okay with him. But yeah, as I said, it's all about that passion, and you know, so I suppose seeing things happen to your kid like that, or whoever you're looking after, would obviously be disappointing, considering at those ages, you know, the parents are probably funding it. So yeah.
Yeah, and I know, well, kids, you see a little gap and you're going to go for it. You're still learning and trying to work out the brakes and the accelerator, and it takes a while to get that finesse where you're not going to stuff up. Yeah,
absolutely. Like Broc said earlier, like you're not really a race driver if you're not, you know, believing in yourself and pushing yourself to the limit. So, you know, if you, as you've heard many people in motorsport say, if there's a gap there and you haven't gone for it, are you really a driver or a rider?
Yeah. Exactly, mate. We've got a saying in road racing: the front wheel's 3.5 inches with the tyres, 3.5 inches wide, and if there's 3.5 inches of bitumen, well, it's all fair play. But now, like you said, the season's about ready to start. What's your progression now? How do you go about it and getting ready for June, July's first racing that you'll be having?
Yeah, well, it's actually not confirmed yet exactly when our racing is going to take place, because main game supercars are going to be back on track doing their racing, but a lot of any of the categories that I'll be running this year are all support categories, so a step down from that main game. And yeah, unfortunately, at the way the current regulations are, there's only enough to run just the main category. So we're yet to find out our calendar, but it's looking like we're still going to be able to get it done. We only have about 5 or 6 races this year that we'll be doing, so we'll be able to, between the categories that I'm running, be able to squeeze them in. And worst comes to worst, I'm sure we'll just run through into 2021 and then start the next season again.
And now with go-kart tracks opening up very soon, I think in the next week or two or whatever, the old car will be getting dusted off and heading down to Oakley or down under the bridge or whatever, Todd Road.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be heading out to Todd Road and cutting some laps as soon as possible. So yeah, we're just at the moment, me and my mechanic are building up a kart to take out and building an engine for that. So yeah, looking forward. It's good throughout this time as well to have something like that to work on. So yeah, it's been good learning about that stuff and building an engine, which I haven't done before. And yeah, we'll be taking that out and giving that a run, which is good. So.
All right, mate. Well, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you here again on Let's Talk Motorsport. And in the meantime, that's us for another week here on Let's Talk Motorsport. Remember to check out our Facebook page, YouTube, our website. Show us what you've got all the other things, all the videos there. We're now on Instagram TV as well, so there's plenty of, as well as a podcast, our audio podcast. Foxtel Aurora, Channel 31, we're all there. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Braxy signing off. See you next week on Let's Talk Motorsport.